The train screamed like a dying animal as it ground to a halt beneath the Wyoming sun, black smoke coiling into the sky like a warning Clara Whitfield could not escape. Her gloved hands pressed to the window as Rock Creek Station emerged from dust and heat, her wedding dress dull and worn, no longer white but the color of bones pulled from the earth. A dress she had worn across 3 states, clinging to a lie she prayed would protect her just long enough to survive. The conductor's voice gentle yet doubtful as he asked who was waiting for her, and Clara forced a smile that tasted like ash as she answered, "My husband." Though she knew there would be no husband, only the ghost of a man buried 2 weeks earlier after a saloon knife fight. News too slow to outrun her gamble, her last chance to reclaim a life stolen by force. The August heat crushing her when she stepped down, her bag heavy with little more than 2 dresses and her mother's Bible. Her knees unsteady until a child's voice sliced through the dust, calling her Mama, freezing her blood as a boy with sandy hair and familiar blue eyes pointed at her with fearless certainty, declaring her his mother just as his father promised, the name James Callahan hitting her like a gunshot, the only man she had ever loved, the boy listing his father's skills with pride while Clara's heart fractured. James's voice then rolling across the platform like thunder, ordering the boy away as his hand dropped to his holster, the man himself stepping forward taller, harder, scarred by years and betrayal, his grey eyes cold as winter steel as he spoke her name like an accusation, calling her Mrs. Crane, circling her with controlled fury as he accused her of abandonment, of promises broken, of marrying another man while he rode away to serve, her voice shaking as she tried to explain the forced marriage, the lies, the drugged night she never consented to. His disbelief sharp and merciless, his pain laid bare as he spoke of returning with a ring only to be told she had chosen another, of raising a son alone after loss, of building a life with bleeding hands while she vanished, ordering her to leave town by the next train, turning away before she could reach him, leaving Clara standing in dust and regret, watching the man she crossed a continent for walk out of her life again. Yet something inside her hardened, instead of breaking, a resolve forged by suffering, lifting her bag and walking toward town as her ruined wedding dress dragged through. Red dirt like a wounded spirit, refusing to lie down, knowing she would not run again. Not from truth, not from love, not from the storm already gathering on the horizon. The storm broke without mercy, rain slamming Rock Creek as Clara stood at the boarding house window, knowing James was only miles away, yet unreachable, whispers following her through town like shadows, until word reached her that his son lay sick with fever. Fear overriding pride, as she borrowed a horse and rode into the violence of wind and lightning, arriving soaked and shaking at the Double C Ranch, where James dragged her inside in shock and fury, disbelief cracking his voice when he realized she had come only for the boy, ordering her to dry herself while he turned away rigid with restraint. The house thick with memories and ghosts as she climbed the stairs to Tommy's room, the child whispering that his angel lady had come, Clara staying through the night, cooling his fever, singing softly, holding him as a mother would, while James watched from the doorway torn between longing and fear, the fever finally breaking near dawn, as exhaustion collapsed the walls between them, James admitting he could not lose his son, Clara touching his arm and promising strength, the truth finally spilling from her lips in quiet devastation, the drugging, the forced vows, the years of cruelty she endured, surviving only by holding on to the memory of James's love, his face crumbling as understanding replaced rage, confessing he never hated her, only himself, producing the old photograph he carried through every lonely year, a fragile hope flickering to life as they agreed to begin again, with only today. Fate refusing them peace as riders appeared on the horizon, the lead man introducing himself as William Crane, demanding Clara as property bound by blood and debt, his hired guns shifting as threats sharpened, James standing between Clara and danger as William gave her an hour to surrender, Clara offering herself to protect the ranch only for James to refuse with fierce Certainty, choosing flight over surrender, choosing family over fear, saddling horses under pressure as Clara accepted his vow of togetherness, riding hard through night and dust toward justice, hands clasped against the wind, the promise of freedom burning brighter than the danger behind them. The judge's gavel came down hard enough to echo through the crowded courtroom, and in that single violent sound, Clara Whitfield felt every chain around her soul finally shatter, the words fraudulent marriage ringing like salvation as the law stripped away the lie that had owned her for years, her knees weakening until James Callahan caught her instantly, his arm firm and unyielding around her waist, as if daring the world to take her again. William Crane shouting threats that died in his throat as deputies snapped irons around his wrists and dragged him away, his promises of revenge sounding hollow against the truth. Clara lifting her head for the first time without fear, without shame, knowing she was free, not because someone allowed it, but because she had fought for it. Rock Creek, greeting her return days later with cautious respect that slowly turned warm as lanterns lit the harvest festival and fiddles sang through the crisp evening air. Clara standing among townsfolk who once whispered, now smiling openly as Tommy ran through the crowd yelling "Mama" at the top of his lungs, his voice ringing proud and fearless. James stepping behind her, brushing her hand with his fingers in a way that spoke louder than words, asking quietly if she was all right, and Clara realizing with a sharp breath that she truly was, that the ache inside her chest had softened into something whole. James hesitating only a moment before asking her to stay, not out of obligation or fear, but Joyce. Clara turning to face him with her heart pounding as she answered yes without doubt, the word family settling between them like a promise spoken by the land itself. Weeks passing gently after that as scars faded and laughter replaced silence in the ranch house. Clara learning the rhythms of the double C, the smell of hay and leather, the way James watched her when he thought she wasn't looking, as if afraid she might disappear, winter arriving early with soft snow blanketing the valley as Clara stood before a small mirror smoothing the front of a simple cream dress she had chosen herself. Not forced, not traded, not stolen, but hers. Tommy peeking through the doorway, grinning wide as he announced his father was near fainting from waiting, the tiny church filled with neighbors and warmth as Clara walked down the aisle steady and unafraid, James standing tall at the altar with eyes full of devotion, unshadowed by anger, their vows spoken clearly, freely, voices trembling not from fear but joy, the kiss sealing not just a marriage but a victory over every hand that tried to break them. Cheers filling the room and Tommy whooping loudest of all, life afterward settling into something solid and real. Mornings shared on the porch, evenings by firelight, James touching Clara with reverence as if she were something precious returned to him by fate. Months later, Clara placing James's hand over her stomach with shaking fingers as she whispered the news, his breath leaving him in disbelief before emotion overtook restraint, and he pulled her close, overwhelmed by the promise of new life, Tommy dancing in circles already planning lessons for the baby. Clara resting her head against James's chest, listening to his heartbeat steady and sure, knowing she had crossed deserts, storms, lies and cruelty to reach this moment. The Wyoming sky stretching wide above them, no longer a threat, but a witness. Freedom no longer a dream, but the ground beneath her feet. Love no longer fragile, but forged. Clara Whitfield no longer running, no longer waiting. Finally, home.